Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here with another riveting Brutal Truth video. Do get yourself one of these handsome Juxtaposition 1 coffee mugs. You can put an adult beverage in that coffee mug. You may need it for today's video. Today's video will be entitled Australian Olympic Doping. Australian Olympic Doping. Yes. Now, I don't mean to pick on Australia. Of course, it's not difficult to do so since it's a strategic hamlet detention facility, which it was from its inception. Um, the scandal has to do with the Australian Institute of Sport, military acronym AIS, which was embarrassed and humiliated in 2004, right, 22 years ago. The Australian Institute of Doping, which is their Olympic development of young athletes from the Hunger Game known as Australia, down under, they were had their dirty laundry put out on display specifically for the cycling team. And we're talking about the track team who races on the 250-meter velodromes. Typically, these are indoor wooden pine wood from Siberia, wooden tracks in a 250 meter circumference. And then you race bicycles on these very steep banking, 21 to 30% gradient banking. So you need to go 25 to 35 miles an hour, or else you'll fall down the banking to get down to the what's called the sprinter's line at the bottom of the banking. Many of the cyclists who trained at the AIS go on to do endurance bicycle racing too, like Tour de France. Many athletes have gone through the AIS, Australian Institute of Sport, have gone on to other aspects of cycling in the endurance area, but they learned many skills and tactics there. Now, what you should know about the Australian Institute of Sport is it covers all Olympic sports: swimming, running, track and field, weightlifting, wrestling. They do it all, okay? Soccer, tennis. All of these athletes that go on to compete in the Olympics typically do go through the Australian Institute of Doping, the Australian Institute of Sports, which we now know is rampant with ubiquitous doping of 100% of everybody on the cycling team. Now, what we learn at the Juxtaposition channel is if there's a scandal involving one sport, you damn well better believe it affects every single other department there at the AIS. There is no way that the coaches do not talk to each other, and that the pharmacists don't talk to each other, and that the pharma wholesale reps don't want to increase their sales. You're talking about spending hundreds of millions of dollars on peptide hormone products, which are steroids. Peptide hormones fits into the steroid category. Talking about horse growth hormones, equine growth hormones. We're talking about insulin. We're talking about glucose. We're talking about blood doping stimulant products like Epogen, EPO. I'm talking about testosterone and cortisone-based steroids, aka corticosteroids, and I'm talking about many other luteinizing products that are in the category of peptide hormones. I'm also referring to narcotics, aka drugs. That would be amphetamines, that would be sleeping pills, barbiturates, amphetamines, barbiturates. I'm talking about antidepressants. I'm talking about Ritalin, which is a form of amphetamine. ADD drugs, ADD, we have a national epidemic of ADD around the world. It's kind of an international outbreak of ADD. You'll find that many athletes use Ritalin, which is a cover story for using amphetamines. We also have an outbreak of asthma throughout the world. Most athletes have salbutamol inhalers, right? Even if they don't have asthma, they have an inhaler. Oh, yes, they do. They even had them on the team that I raced on, which was an amateur team with no money involved, but quite a few riders on my team had salbutamol asthma inhalers, and I never saw them sneeze or cough, but they would all grab their inhalers just a few minutes before we went to the starting line. And I felt like a dork because I didn't have one. All right. So in 19, what I should tell you, in the year that this all came to fruition for the public was 2004, when Lance Armstrong was still throttling everyone in the Tour de France, which we now know that Lance Armstrong doped every single day that you saw him on television. And by the way, he doped every single day when you didn't see him on television too. You should believe not a damn thing comes out of the pie hole of Lance Armstrong. He lied to you for over 20 years. And every single sports journalist who covered Lance Armstrong, you shouldn't believe anything they say either, because they've been covering him and concealing the truth about doping during the Farmstrong era, the Lance Farmstrong Nike yellow wristband, Nike sponsored doping era in the Tour de Farce. But right now I'm going to focus on Adelaide, Australia, which is where the AIS is headquartered, where they send all the future Olympians from Australia to get trained as juniors. Typically, they're going to get down there by age 13 and start with their doping routines and their exercise training and recovery rituals. In 2004, the Australian Institute of Sport revealed a doping scandal. Much to their surprise, it kind of came because there were some car crashes and embarrassing situation involving Mark French, who was the junior world champion on the track, um, and another elite world-class sprinter, Jabi Dajka. It was those two that had some off-track scandals that led to the discovery that the coaches, the sports physiologists, the medical doctors, and pharmacy reps who are in Adelaide, Australia, were all corrupt, and they're all getting paid money to dope kids under 18 years old. This is focusing mainly on kids under 18 years old, doping kids under 18. Now, the kids stick around when they're 19 and 20 and 21 and continue to use the facility, which is a world-class facility. And they're on a boatload of drugs, and they stand as examples to the writers that come the next generation. This is how the scandal began. It began in December 2003 when housekeepers discovered large plastic buckets containing injectable paraphernalia. They found 13 ampules of horse growth hormones known as equine growth hormones. That's right. The kids use veterinarian horse hormones. Don't be surprised, because if you ever use growth hormones or testosterone, that's exactly what your dog or your farm animals will get. You know that the pharmaceutical industry makes billions selling hormones to farmers and ranchers. And guess what? They use that exact product in a different vial with a different label where they'll put human on it, human testosterone, human growth hormone. And you know what? Then they charge 10 times more money. And the insurance companies will pay a higher reimbursement if the hormone is for humans versus the animals. But it is exactly the same ingredients and recipe inside. So it's just a marketing thing that if you substitute human for equine or bovine, if you just put human in front of bovine, you can get 10 times more money. Got it? Hope you're following along here on the Juxtaposition Brutal Truth channel. Anyway, the housekeepers came across all of these spent syringes and empty vials involving, in this case, they're saying it's horse growth hormones. I can assure you that there's at least 30 products that are used. So, look, there's no horse growth hormones are the least toxic of all the drugs. There's amphetamines, there's massive amounts of testosterone, there's female fertility hormones that are being used that go with the testosterone, so you don't end up like Bruce Jenner, for example. Bruce Jenner is an example of a doping problem, right? They got the doping wrong for Bruce Jenner. All right, turned him into a woman with stiletto heels. I'd say that's getting it wrong. All right. So anyway, Equigen is an illegal doping product, of course, and you'd need a prescription from a doctor, which there was no prescriptions found, of course. And the discovery of this then led to Mark French being accused of possession and trafficking of a banned substance. Now, at that time, I believe he was 16 years old. So they really bullied him, intimidated him, and roughed him up a little bit. He was a world champion on the track at age 16 years old. And they banned him from cycling for 2 years and fined him 1,000 Australian dollars. Whoop-de-doo, right? Mark French had then to testify at a court tribunal hearing in Australia, what's called the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which has a military acronym, CAS. And he did so in June 2004. Mark French swore that an older athlete, Shane Kelly, Shane Eady, and Job B. Dodgka, Graham Brown, and Brett Lancaster all used his personal dorm bedroom at the AIS, which was provided at no charge to Mark French, world champion, and that his bedroom was used for the injections of vitamins, which vitamins is code for amphetamines, and for vitamins and banned substance to not be named. Banned substance would be amphetamines, blood doping products, um, stimulants, and Ritalin, and barbiturates to go to bed, to take a nap, to recover, insulin and glucose, IV feeds, IV bags, luteinizing products to help calm you down when you overdose on your testosterone. Female fertility hormones could be injected or taken with oral pills. Mark French claimed that these sessions occurred from June 2003 to December 2003, just months before the Athens, Greece Olympic Games. Let me translate for you. Before Mark French was born, they were doping in that dorm room. And during the entire time that Mark French was at the AIS, he was being doped. Everyone he cycled with was being doped. Everyone on the soccer team and the tennis team and the swimming team, they were all being doped too. And I just love how they want to contain the doping scandal to cycling, which is collects the least amount of commercial revenue from corporations. Of all the sports, cycling is one of the smallest ones in terms of revenue from advertising. And they want to contain it to Mark French and this, five people that he ratted out, Joe Doka, who went on to commit suicide in a flaming car crash at age 21, I believe, just a few years after Mark French humiliated him at the tribunal. It was reported in all the newspapers. Joe B. Dodgka is no longer with us. He was dead by age 22, I think. All right. Graham Brown, Brett Lancaster, Sean Eady, and Shane Kelly. Shame on you. You're all dopers. Everybody knows you're a doper, and you don't want to talk about doping. I get it. You're like Lance Armstrong, right? Get your own podcast and just keep lying. Lie till you die. That's the program when you go into the Code of Omerta, corporate sponsored sports. I want you to know that. DNA testing linked Jobgidopka to using the banned substances of the human growth hormone, relabeled equine growth hormone. Brown and Lancaster admitted that they injected vitamins, but claimed that they also used other banned substances, but they didn't want to talk about it. In accordance with the court's non-disclosure rules, the court didn't want to hear what doping products you're injecting. That's what you call maritime law, right? Where the judges conceal the truth. And to be specific, the Supreme Court justice in this case is Robert Anderson, QC, and he was the Earl Warren of the Earl Warren Commission. He was the oversight magistrate, what was called the Anderson Inquiry, also known as the Earl Warren Commission. Um, he was in charge of getting to the bottom of the doping scandal at the Australian Institute for Sport at the Del Monte facility in Adelaide, Australia. Let me just tell you something. He's a cover artist, and you shouldn't believe anything that Robert Anderson, the honorable, dishonorable Robert Anderson says. He's a complete criminal, just like Earl Warren was. Earl Warren's dead, but I'll bet Robert Anderson is still lying and wearing a black robe. If you wear a black robe, you're to be shamed, shunned, and ignored. Um, Robert Anderson, the judge, wants you to know there is no cultural use of drugs, doping at the AIS Del Monte facility. That's what he concluded by looking into the Mark French scandal of horse growth hormones. Well, it's just the opposite. It's completely rampant. Now I think that Robert Anderson is a drug dealer. I think he sells the drugs to the children, probably to 12 and 13-year-old kids. Mark French was eventually cleared of his wrongdoing in July 2005. They said there was a general lack of evidence, and it was more he said, she said. And he then had his lifetime Olympic ban rescinded. Now he has his world championship back, and he has Olympic gold medals that he won, and those are now clean, even though he's dirty. Joe Dodka was found to have lied and committed perjury under oath. He was suspended from the 2004 Olympic training camp and was denied access to represent Australia in the Greek Olympic Games, where Joby Dodka was expected to get a medal in sprinting in the 200-meter sprint at the Greek Olympic Games, but he was denied because of his lying under oath, lying like a rug. He then went on to get killed in a car crash. All right, the scandal then cast a shadow on Australian track cycling team's preparation for the Athens Olympic Games. Ultimately, this required a reduction in the medal count of the Australian cycling team, since I guess the best riders didn't go to the Olympics. In summary, Mark French was initially accused and banned from cycling at age 16. The official inquiry then exonerated him. Thank you, Robert Johnson, and found only limited evidence to support that he was a dope or cheat using banned substance. The case does remain a notable example of how doping allegations can escalate without conclusive positive drug tests. Well, I'm here to tell you people there's no such thing as drug tests. So get the drug test the hell out of here. You know, the pharmaceutical companies deliberately on purpose design their products to not have markers. So, and to degrade in a human body within, some products degrade within 90 minutes of injection. So, unless you get a person whilst they're being injected with the illegal substance, they're never going to test positive. Plus, most of the products, like the blood doping products and the luteinizing products and the female hormone products, there is no protocol for testing of them. Number three is, if you don't get to somebody with the amphetamines, like Paul Pelosi, for example, if you don't get to them within 12 hours, then they're never going to test positive. The testosterone test, they do have a foolproof test for it, for animal-based testosterone. And guess what? The Olympics does not administer it, and the World Doping Agency, WADA, World Anti-Doping Agency, they do not enforce the exogenous test for animal testosterone. And instead, they use the TE test, the testosterone divided by epitestosterone, which 100% of doped athletes who are on 30 times the normal testosterone will pass a TE test. In other words, they created a test that a doper can pass, even if you get to them within 12 hours of taking testosterone injections or gels. Application on your skin comes in a gel form. It also comes in oral, and it comes in injection. And you can use any of those three methods and pass a TE test, even if they tested you within 30 minutes of absorbing the illegal substance. You see, so everything about doping in sports is a charade. They all dope 100%, and then they all deny it, and then people, judges like Robert Anderson, cover it up. Because you're talking about billions of dollars of sales, and they want the parents to continue to promote sports, soccer, tennis, running, swimming, cycling, so that they can take the cream of the crop of the kids and dope them and turn them into Tour de France riders or Olympic champions. That's the gist of the AIS. The Australian Institute of Sport is 100% corrupt organization, and all the magistrates who protect it are criminals. You know, like Robert Anderson, Supreme Court Justice, to be imprisoned. He should be in a detention camp with no windows and no cell phone access for Chief Justice Robert Anderson, fraud, criminal. All right. Anyway, I hold him responsible for the death of Jabi Daja. If it wasn't for that stupid judge, Jabi could be alive in a rehab program somewhere. But instead, he got killed in a car crash. All right. Anyway, that's my video today. This is going to set the stage for the celebrations of Tadej Pogacar over there at the Tour de France, who set a new climbing record on Les Alpes d'Huez today. He did it in 35 minutes and let me see here I'm not sure what he did. 35 minutes, 40 seconds. The old record held by Marco Pantani was 36:20. So he shattered the record. That record it was set twice by Marco Pantani, who was in his 20s when he did that. Tadej Pogacar, a Slovenian, he is 27 years old. He set the new record today. Everyone's impressed. I believe he used an electric motor. Marco Pantani only weighed 135 pounds when he set the record in 1995 and then broke it in 1997. And that record was shattered today. And Tadej Pogacar is at least 25 pounds heavier. So I don't think it could be done without the electric assistant motor. And I do believe that Tadej Pogacar is a doper drug cheat. But so was Marco Pantani. And Marco Pantani died 8 years later at age 34 of a heart attack. He died of a heart attack on the Adriatic coast of Italy in a hotel room alone by himself while his girlfriend went out to get him some more drugs, I think. Okay, so what do you think is going to happen to Tadej Pogacar in 8 years? He'll probably be dead of a stroke, heart attack, or like Jabi Dajka, killed in a car accident. You know that Tadej Pogacar, his manager, boss of the United Arab Emirates team, which is a Swiss bank-funded team, Mauro Gianetti is a Swiss citizen. He himself face planted into the gutter and had a stroke heart attack during the 1998 Tour of Switzerland. He actually collapsed on the bike and spent 10 days in the ICU for overdosing on perfluorocarbons, which is a blood doping toxic industrial product, PFC. That's the person who tells Tadej Pogacar what kind of electric motor to use and what kind of blood doping to use. Who's an older man. I think he's like 55 years old, and he's bossing around a 27-year-old on what doping products to use. What do you think the chances are that the biggest budget financial team, supported by a Swiss national who's a owner of the team, along with United Arab Emirates, which is a Swiss colony bank in the Middle East, what do you think the chances are that an Arab team wouldn't cheat in the Tour de France? Zero. What do you think the chances are that Lance Armstrong, if he had a team, that they wouldn't cheat? Zero. Of course they would cheat. Do you think Mauro Gianetti, a Swiss national, would cheat in the Tour de France? Well, he did. He won Liège-Bastogne-Liège solo, and he almost won the Tour of Switzerland until he had a heart attack and nearly died. So there is no way in 2026 that a person who almost died in 1998 is going to go straight. He wouldn't have his boy on the podium in a yellow jersey. It would never happen. All right. Just like Mark French would never have a world championship gold medal if he didn't dope in accordance with what the adults bossed him around and told him what to do at the Australian Institute of Sport. That's my video for today. Do like and share my videos. You know I am heavily shadow banned. There are many Australians that will be furious with me because I'm telling you the brutal truth, that your Olympic teams are 100% doped, and that all your judges in Australia are criminals. They support COVID vaccines. They support masking. They all wore face diapers and their black robes, and they should all be rounded up and put into a Donald Trump Freedom City in Adelaide, in Sydney, and in Melbourne or Perth. They should have prison camps, which I believe they do have, but the judges and all the attorneys, the barristers, should all be put into the prisons, along with all the pharmaceutical reps who deal with children doping. Put them all in there and throw away the key. That's what juxtaposition says. And by the way, you can apply that rule to the United States, Team USA, because we're doped to the gills too. You can apply it to Germany, Slovakia, Slovenia, Spain, and Ronan Dennis, who is wandering around with his two children after having murdered his wife, who was an Olympic champion herself. And they're both dopers. You have a doper violence on another doper. in Adelaide, Australia, Ronan Dennis. That's going to be another video I'll do separately. The husband killed his wife after they argued about the remodeling of their upscale home in Adelaide. He was an alumni of the AIS, Australian Institute of Sports, and he killed his wife. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you take too many amphetamines. You lose your temper. It's called roid rage. Take care now. Bye bye.